Hi, and welcome to the tutorial to be able to create a plan of care encounter for care coordination within InSync, as well as identify a new to-do that correlates with your plan of care. So for starters, upon entering InSync and on your dashboard, please make sure that your name is in the top right-hand corner, as well as the facility that you are completing the task in is highlighted here. From here, we are going to proceed to go to the scheduler. Any type of encounter that is a billable encounter for care coordination, we want to make sure it is identified within the scheduler. From here, we are going to identify a date and a time to be able to have a billable note for this plan of care. So up here where it says patient/group, we are going to identify a client that we are going to create that plan of care for. We are going to make sure that this plan of care is at the identified time that you chose on your scheduler. The visit type is checked in, as well as the visit type will be the CC plan of care. From here, we want to make sure that the billable is checked and the procedure code says T1017. From here, we're going to proceed to click on the book appointment and start encounter at the bottom right-hand corner. From here, it'll bring you to the start encounter page for your client. You're going to make sure your encounter type says CC plan of care, your provider is you, your primary facility is identified within this, so mine is Harford County CC, and then you're going to proceed to have your POS code change. It'll typically be 11 or 12, which represents office or home. For today, we are going to say the office, and we want to make sure our visit date and our start date are the same. As well as when we proceed to go down lower, we want to make sure that this is highlighted green to make it an billable note. If we click it off, it'll be unbillable. So we want to make sure that stays. As well as we want to make sure that this code is still T1017. From there, we'll proceed to click on Start Encounter. From here, it'll bring you to the treatment plan. To begin to put in your treatment plan, we're going to first go to the visit and procedure codes. From here, we see that it says Children Case Management per 15 minutes, T1017 is already highlighted. So from here, we're going to press the plus button to the left. And we want to make sure that the amount of units that we're spending to create this plan of care is being implemented. So we will proceed to go over to the unit section and identify how many units you are spending on creating this plan of care. So for these purposes, we will just say 8 units, which 8 units equals 2 hours. From here, we will proceed to scroll down and click on the Goals and Interventions tab. From here, we want to make sure that the units are highlighted of what we changed. So now it went from 1 unit to 8 units. From here, we will proceed to complete the Goals and Interventions tab, which is ultimately our plan of care. So we will click on the template of CC Plan of Care. From here, we will proceed to identify the next review date. So for these purposes, we will say this client is a level 2. So we will say it'll be in 3 months' time. So it's 3 months out from the review date that we identified, which was the 8/3/2020. From here, we want to make sure that we are sending it to our HC client services. Well, our HCCC client services. And that to-do gets sent to our client services for care coordination. Upon here, we can begin to create our plan of care. So we will first start with being able to identify what life area of need you're going to want to put in your outcome, intervention, and persons responsible, as well as your needs statement. So for all purposes, we will just pick family and residence. And from here, there will be a drop down to be able to identify which outcomes that you want to be able to identify within that specific need. So we will say, accept emotional support from those who care without pushing them away. From here, we're going to press add. And there below, we find our outcome that we chose. From here, we are going to click on our link. It looks like a chain link, and when you hover over it, it says link short-term goal. From here, we are going to get this intervention. So we can identify an intervention that will go with this outcome. So we'll say an intervention, we will click accept and understand that distress symptoms are due to mental illness. And then we will click add. From there, we will press where it says intervention. We can see which intervention that we chose. From here, we will proceed to press the link intervention again, and we will identify someone that is responsible. So we will say the therapist. And once there, we can press add, and there we see the therapist. From here, how we see that all of these three are linked together, we want to make sure that we're identifying frequency, the time period, and the duration. So the frequency that we want to say is being able to, check in with your therapist. So we'll say that they check in with their therapist 2 times a month. And then we'll say the duration, because this is a level 2, we'll say 3 months. So we'll make sure that time period is per month. So then after we are completed with that, we want to do the target date for the intervention. So since how I said before, they are level 2, we will put the target date out 3 months out. So you can either go about this 2 ways. We can either be able to use the arrows to click through the calendar, and identify how many months out and be able to identify the day. Or you can just simply type it in. We will do the same thing for the outcome, which I'll type it in this way, and be able to identify the 3 months out. From here, we'll have everything here. And then we proceed to create a need statement that would go with this outcome, the intervention, and the person responsible. So with this being a level 2, we could say within 90 days, client will be able to engage in therapeutic services to learn positive coping skills, to accept emotional support. From there, we would press add, and then we're able to see this need statement is here, as well as we would change the target date to be 3 months out. And like how I said, you can either type it or you can click it and find it on the calendar. From here, we see that this is all saved. So from here, you have one of your outcomes, interventions, and person responsible. So just to repeat it, we will do it again. So we will do a different one. So we will do education and vocational. So we will proceed to identify an outcome that works with this specific goal. So we will say type in education, and then we'll click this one, and we will proceed to press add. From add, we see that the outcome is identified. If you want to put your target date at this point, we can, 11/03/2020, and we proceed to go to the link. From here, we'll be able to identify an intervention. So if we're trying to figure out an intervention, we can just type in the education, and we will click this intervention, as well as then we will go down and we will proceed to identify a person responsible with this intervention. So we could put teacher, and we can add. Now, as you see how there are multiple different interventions because it picked up the education, if this is not an intervention that you want to utilize, we can always press this trash can. It says delete long term. You say, are you sure you want to delete? You press yes, and then it goes away. And then from here, please make sure that we are having our target date, as well as we are identifying the frequency that they would be assisting with this goal. So with this and having school being 5 days a week, we'll say 5 days per month, and the duration, because if we are level 2, it would be 3 months out. And once again, where it says record updated successfully, we will have this, as well as then we have to add our need statement. So we would say within 90 days, client will be able to obtain an effective IEP. And then we will press add, and it is updated and says patient stated goal successfully, saved successfully. So from here, once you are done completing all the outcomes, interventions, persons responsible, and your need statement, we would proceed to go up here and end our encounter. To end our encounter, please make sure that you are clicking the little icon that has the big X on it. From here, you will be able to see the things that you identified within that treatment plan. Now here we want to make sure that we are adding our end date and end time. So the end date is the same day that we started it, which would be the 8/3. And we said we used 2 hours, so we can either type it in or we can use those arrows. So we'll say 1 p.m., 120 minutes. And then we have to always make sure we request our cosign, which will be Samaya Jackson. From here, we will make sure that we have putting in our PIN, 1111. Still wanting in the encounter. And from there, you've completed the encounter. If you would like to view the encounter, we would proceed to go to the encounter note. And we would be able to review the plan that you had, as well as you see your signature below. To be able to make sure that we create a to-do to make sure we're reminding ourselves when these plans are due and when a next CFT has to be had, we will create a to-do to back up this plan of care. So what we will do is we will go back to our dashboard, and from here we'll create and click on a new to-do. From here we will make sure that the to is to the user or group. User or group is ourselves, because we want to remind ourselves, as well as anyone else that we want to remind. So because we were able to send that directly to the client services for care coordination, we could be able to sign it to Samaya. So Samaya has another running record as well. So from there it says to selected, in which case it would be yourself and it would be Samaya. From here, we will proceed to go to category. And we could press request for documents. As well as then we would proceed to go to the reminder date. So we would put it 60 days out. So from here, because we had it on 8/3, we want to see to be able to put it out to 10/3. So you can either type it, or you can go through the calendar and you can choose that. You can make the subject line CFT for whoever client that you had. So we did Toya Tast. CFT for Toya Tast, and you can put the date for 11/03/20, which is the date that it's due. You would still complete it, you could still have the status as not started. From here, you would be able to simply just type anything that you would need to type regarding this specific thing. So An example of something we type being like, next CFT for TOEIC test is to be held and documents be completed by 11/03/20. And from here you can proceed to send. And you have successfully created a to-do. Thank you, and I hope this tutorial was helpful.